Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Thank you for your patience and indulgence as usual. We had a small presentation this morning, which prevented us from starting on time. This morning, our first speaker is the Minister of Education, Youth and Sports and Digital Transformation, Honorable Kenson.
Sir.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Yeah, fucking.
And what are you doing? There's a couple of announcements. This Sunday, 22nd March 2026, we will be having our Island Champs, the third edition of our Island Champs. This is a very good opportunity for us to all come together in honor of Julian Alfred, who she is, and in the search for our next Julian Alfred from our school system. It is scheduled for the Darren Sammy Cricket Grounds. It should be very, very exciting. Some of the fastest athletes in St. Lucia will be on display. We're expecting a record number of people to be there, considering that it's on the weekend. It's a nice line for everybody in the communities from Viewfort all the way to Grosley. We are certainly hoping to see a CPL style atmosphere at the Darren Sammy this coming Sunday. We are starting from 1 o'clock with match pass of the teams, and of course we'll be having the start shortly after. We do have, like I said, all the CPL infrastructure in terms of a VIP area. We'll have the VIP area available to the public for purchase, $150. If people decide and parents decide to be in a VIP area, it's all inclusive. It's a nice little package. And of course, we will be having the corporate booths available. The corporate sector is invited to take advantage of our reduced price. That is $2,000 for the usage of that corporate box. We will have obviously the usual corporate boxes available for those who normally rent during CPL. Admission is $10. And of course, we're asking that $10 as a contribution towards the event. Obviously, there were so many conversations about the price of admission, but we decided to really lower it to get all family, all friends, and we're expecting all individuals from the secondary school setup to be out in support of our young people. We hosted the event twice in Soufrière, and we decided that the third edition, we will bring it up north in anticipation of works commencing at the George Orwell Stadium later this year, and an eventual move back to the south of our Island Champs. We will be providing transportation from Castries straight to the Darren Sammy, and that will be $5. We will be making sure that people can identify the buses that will be on the Grosley bus stop that will take them directly to the Darren Sammy. And of course, we will be having buses at the junction near the fire station in the Nassau, Grosley, to take people to Beauséjour. That would be $1.75, and then for sure, these buses will be designated. We'll also be having a designated area for after. We know we've had some situations where after cricket, people are stranded and not be able to get back into Castries, and as they are walking, we will be having a designated area identified for those buses with a sticker to provide transportation back to Castries and of course back to Grosley for other individuals. So we are looking forward to it. We have additional performances, Ezra the Fun Machine, Imran Nudi, and of course for the parents. I don't want to say for the parents because Alpha is really for everybody, but historically he's been a soca monarch, a groovy monarch, and somebody that really brings on the nostalgia of our music industry, where he will be performing as well. So very good atmosphere expected for Island Champs 2026. Also, we have been onto another topic, drag racing. We've had a lot of discussion at Cabinet as it pertains to drag racing in St. Lucia. We've done a lot of work in our alternative sports program. You've seen a lot of facility development in the traditional sports in terms of the Francis Babalastic grounds. We did work at Darren Sammy. We are doing work on facilities around the island. And we did make mention in our manifesto that we will be establishing a drag racing track in the south. The cabinet has been discussing the dynamics of that, and we will be commencing work very soon on a drag racing track in the south. That is to ensure that obviously we can have a proper venue, a better venue come December 13th as we start another season in the alternative sport. And of course, next year we can have a better independent drag competition. Over the last week in education, we continue to host meetings as we transition as a new minister into the ministry. We held meetings with TVET last week. We really, as a government, we are very committed to ensuring that individual students are given the opportunity to study, to pursue what is intrinsic to them, to pursue what they love. And so we've continued the discussions as we continue the transformation. We've been having conversation about the various TVET institutions on the island and how it is that we can augment efforts and to make it even better as we continue to provide that service to our young people. We also had a very, very good meeting with the district councillors. The Prime Minister have indicated that we will be making continued investments in counseling. We believe the psychosocial aspect of the student has to be given additional attention. And in the coming budget, the Prime Minister will be making some more pronouncements on district counseling and providing that service to as many students as possible in our inner communities. Questions? Yes, sir.
First question, just on the Island Champs venue change. Was that also done in an effort to sort of, I guess, curtail some of the issues persons would have had with the Soufrière venue? I know there were some concerns that we may have possibly outgrown that venue. So just, was that another reason?
We definitely outgrew that venue. We are having continued discussions. The parliamentary rep for Soufrière, she's been lobbying for additional studies on that Soufrière mini stadium, and we are continuing the discussion in terms of the plans, exactly the whole structure, how we're going to actually put it together. But the fact of the matter remains that even if we had that structure, we would have still outgrown Soufrière as a venue for Island Champs, especially on the weekend. So considering that we've hosted it there twice, and we are continuing in terms of the design for the George Island Stadium and some of the dynamics we are putting in place after we totally come out from the George Island Stadium and into St. Jude, we felt that it was necessary for us to go to a place that was more comfortable for everybody. It's more comfortable for the athletes in terms of a warm-up area, for the officials, and of course the patrons. We are looking forward to having as many parents and supporters of track and field and sport in St. Lucia at the Darren Sammy come Sunday.
Okay, just shifting gears a little bit. I know the past couple of weeks there's been a lot happening in sport and education, but on the education front, CXC would have reported some successes in sort of the pilot of the hybrid system for CXC, and they said coming out of that, they have even more confidence in more so implementing the digital iteration of these exams in future sittings. Just your thoughts on that, as you know, with your portfolios of both education and digital transformation. What do you think of those declarations by CXC?
Well, definitely the Prime Minister in his wisdom decided that he was going to put me into digital transformation along with Minister Butcher. And of course, we've really joined our efforts in terms of brainstorming and how it is that we can do that. And when I became minister, I think the first thing I asked for is pretty much cost. What is the costing needed for us to institute a comprehensive digital transformation of our education sector? We have some schools in this island that have computers, as you can very well imagine, that have been there for the last 10 years, in some instances 12 years, that need replacements and that sort of stuff. So we are in the process of pretty much putting the dollar amount towards what we need. In addition to that, we've started conversation with our partners, our global partners, on really making contributions beyond just the laptop program, but continued investments into the smart classrooms, and of course more devices, modern devices for all our schools. That will definitely allow us to work in concert with funding institutions such as CXC to ensure that we can comfortably guide the next generation into that multi-faceted approach to examinations. I feel very confident that we are going to be making tremendous strides in digital transformation. I think we have a very good team at the Ministry of Education, and I think the joining of the minds between Danny and myself, we've already started a conversation, and we're excited about ensuring that we have classrooms that are not just smart classrooms, but they are further equipped around the island to ensure that we see the effects of digital transformation and the use of AI and other technologies in our school and education system.
Yes, Minister, we know that sports tourism no doubt has been playing its part in the economic development of the nation. Post the total movement of St. Jude's from the George Odlum Stadium, can we expect a redeveloped George Odlum Stadium into what many have been positing for in respect to athletics development and an investment in some sort of academy for the development of athletics on the island of St. Lucia?
Yes, very interesting that you would bring that up. We've been having some very, very deep conversation with international funders and bodies as it pertains to track and field in particular, in developing a high-performance track and field program in St. Lucia. That would definitely require us to have a venue where the population center is, which is between, we know the numbers, between Castries and Rosalie, like 90,000 people living. So we have to identify an area for a 400-meter track within that particular locality. So we are looking into that heavily. George Odlum, I'm very confident that we will be having a state-of-the-art facility once we start this work, considering we have the Arab government already coming on board to help us with the financing. The designs would definitely be aimed at modernizing, similar to what we did at Darren Sammy at George Odlum Stadium. So it would be actually better than what we previously had, better surface for sprinting and of course running, and better facilities all the way around. So that would provide us with 3 venues that I hope by the end of this term we'll have one in the north, one in Viewfort and one in Soufrière, which would mean whoever picks up after this tour as a Minister of Sport, he would have only one responsibility in terms of track and field, find an area to lay a 400-meter track on the East Coast. This is the vision. This would definitely allow us to identify all of our talents in terms of sprinting, in terms of running, jumping, athletics, and to provide a comprehensive high-performance program similar to what we have in cricket, so we can really continue to push the athletics agenda in this country.
Minister, final question from me. That's posited in line of your constituency. We saw action by Marcellus Backsteed recently in respect of the Red Hewitt Beach and the removal of a temporary fence in there. Any comments as it relates to this and the action taken by the individual?
Well, for me as an MP, I think the development has a lot of, it's multifaceted. You're with individuals from all walks of life. I mean, Backs, as we call him, is an individual that I know for a very long time. An interested individual. We've had a lot of deep conversations about sports development in St. Lucia. I think generally he comes from a good place. You cannot read a man's heart for sure, but generally the conversations we've had, especially about basketball, he's one of those who sourced basketball rims from the US and has brought it down in St. Lucia for us to further our basketball program. So generally, individuals have their different methodologies. They see things differently. When you have a constituency that is the fastest developing in the entire OACS, I know some people are from Dominica, don't like to hear that, but the fastest developing constituency in all of the OACS, bar none. You have different individuals that see the development of that constituency slightly differently. I'm somebody who like to ensure that people are encouraged to express themselves. Once they do it within the ambits of the law, once they don't cross that boundary, I would have no issues with it. But what you're seeing in the constituency is just a mammoth amount of development along our shores, the infrastructure, the people. And as a parliamentary representative, I really encourage free speech, free expression of thought, and I pretty much sometimes have a little chuckle because these are new problems that other MPs around the UCS would want. But and I think at the end of the day, I don't necessarily think it's coming from a negative place. But again, you can't read a man's heart.
Good afternoon, Minister. So just 2 questions in terms of from me. I know a little earlier you said about the opening of the new drag race down, especially within the South, and with alternative sports becoming a big highlight, especially with drag racing. What else can we expect in St. Lucia in terms of more alternative sports actually coming forefront right now?
Yeah.
What can we
Remember
expect?
when the member from St. Lucia Times used to ask those questions? He's moved on to that is a very good question, my brother. We as a ministry, with Craig Gustav, the candidates of the tree, because the director Clivus, we are always, sometimes I feel like we are a ministry that doesn't sleep. Our mind is always going, what can we do next? What can we do next? What can we do next? And this is the energy we bring to sports in all facets. You can look forward to the aspect of alternative sports and the virtual gaming being something that is huge, getting a huge investment this year. We've identified a location for the Gaming Association. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry, online gaming, and so we are going to be expanding. We've identified an area at the Philip Park for us to put a state-of-the-art modern gaming room there. So we would see the competitions in gaming that a lot of the times ties in with what's happening in sports tourism. People coming in to have those little competitions. You can expect to see some works on that. You let me put the cat out of the bag, considering we have a budget debate very soon. But this is one of the industries that we are going to be really focusing on. Also combat sports. We've seen some really good investment of time by individuals in various combat sports, and we are certainly expected to have more of an expose next alternative sports season from the different aspects of combat sports. So I've had some meetings, I've dropped some highlights of some of what's happening within the combat sports sector, and we are going to be identifying a location for that as well in the next financial year. So there's a lot to look out for. The St. Lucia Chess Federation continue to hit above their weight. They have been expanding more and more in terms of the membership of individuals playing chess on this island, and we are looking to see more and more expansion of that particular sector as well.
Okay. All right. And secondly, from me, after speaking with Mr. Gajada on the update of the Vesikwe Road, any updates we can see on the starting of the Sir Julian R. Hunt Highway? Any plans in terms of going forward with the rehabilitation?
So I'm very happy, first and foremost, that Lucia and the contractor, they've reached an agreement, and that we are going to see some additional speed rate in terms of the execution of that VSCP road. The next phase will be from Monjuro into Grosley, the gap next to the Grosley police station, the state-of-the-art modern headquarters for police in St. Lucia and the region. We're expecting, I don't have a start date, but I can say to you we've done the relevant consultation. And I want to say a little bit about that, because when we had the beginning of under the previous administration, there was a little consultation. But last December, I walked into a meeting at Bay Gardens, and members from the intelligent members from Raydree and Rodney Bay were giving their feedback. We presented to them the total plans, and we told them about the inconvenience and some of what we are doing in terms of the walkovers. You're going to see the plans in the budget. Elevator pretty much provided there for people of disabilities to come across by Rodney Bay and of course by Kilago and some of the other areas. Very good plans. I would like to say very quickly that there's going to be massive inconveniences no matter what. And even then, when it's executed, you will have things that you've never seen in St. Lucia before. On that particular level, in terms of having to go around a roundabout that is further than where you could be in terms of just turning. You used to just turning left right now. After the completion of these works, you may have to go further and come around a roundabout and come back. But these are things that you see in the first world. And so we are expecting that people will complain, but in terms of the finished product, we'll definitely see huge development up north in terms of the fluency with which you can get in and around the most populous constituency in the region. So I feel very confident that we are going to start during this budget period. It's going to take some time. It's going to be inconvenient, but it is necessary for the further development of our country, and it's going to increase productivity at a very high level.
Alternative sports, quite exciting, it sounds. how do you, again, always my type of question, how do you rationalize the advent of noise pollution with regards our that aspect of things, and also your drag racing with respect to what's happening on the roads?
Well, the plan has always been to establish an association, and this is how sport has developed. You know that from the Football Association, the St. Lucia Football Association, the St. Lucia Cricket Association. What we've attempted to do is really formalize the drag racing in a St. Lucia Drag Racing Association, so as to ensure that with that establishment, we can have a formal structure for how we institute racing in St. Lucia. It is happening. It has been happening for years. What we are trying to do right now is to bring them together and make sure it's done responsibly. That is why it's so critical that we establish that venue this year so they can go there and practice proper driving as it pertains to the actual competition aspect of it, and institute programs. That is going to be a huge mandate that me as Minister and the PS will be looking out for. Government is investing in the sport. You need to meet us halfway by investing in the programs, instituting the programs of safe driving, the ills of reckless driving on our roads, and really going to the schools and the different areas where people actually are interested in that sport that is a multi-million-dollar sport, by the way, in the region, to make sure that you can pass it over. So we have more responsible driving, and we're expecting to do the same with motor sports as well in terms of Moto X, which pretty much provides more of noise pollution than actual drag racing. So we're definitely going to look forward to the establishment of that venue and ensuring that we encourage the programs for safer driving on our streets by all young.
Same vein, how do you manage then how do you manage those vehicles that are drag racing ready on our streets? How do you manage, because now we do have an issue, so says a few people, that in respect of the music part of it, those cars that are meant for the entertainment and competition part of it are actually on the streets, on the roads, on the beach, in neighborhoods, competing.
All right. So, noise pollution legislation. Right now, we had to send it back to get further review. We're only getting the opinions because we have the legislation ready. And we published it in the Gazette for us to get some feedback on the decibel levels. So that legislation is there. It's going to be passed at some point this year, because like I said, the opinions are starting to come in now. We've had identified decibel levels for different areas in St. Lucia, so different establishments in St. Lucia as well. So once that legislation is passed, what's going to be important now is for the police and the implementation of the laws based on the legislation. In times past, we did not have smartphones that would have allowed somebody to instantaneously check the decibel level of a particular area or entertainment area or activity. But under the legislation, the police will now have the authority and the app on their phones to actually indicate that based on the legislation that you are over 100 decibels, which puts you in conflict with the law, and they can shut you down. So the implementation thereafter is going to be very important. And obviously with the legislation, when we have those competitions, we will have to ensure that it is done in an environment that is temporary and that it does not inconvenience the neighbors as we speak.
Good afternoon, Minister.
Good afternoon.
Moving to sports a bit, where are we with the swimming pool, the Olympic-sized swimming pool?
Okay, so the swimming pool, we've had to make some decisions as it pertains to the contractor and some of the arrangements with that pool. The time span for the completion of that pool has lapsed, and so we are in the process of making adjustments to ensure that we can complete it at the earliest. It is perhaps the most difficult projects I've overseen since becoming Minister of Sport, but it is one that we're expecting that very soon, once we've identified some of the issues and some of the factors that have stalled the program. Once we've weeded this out, we should see a smooth sailing towards completion of that stadium, and we're certainly hoping that we have it complete by the end of 2027.
In a similar vein, we've had the long, drawn-out conversation about our young people, or our people in general, living on an island and not knowing how to swim, with the associations calling for programs in school. Of course, when there's a drowning, we make noise and then it goes away. Are we having any serious conversations about implementing swimming programs in our schools?
Yes, so that would go back to your first question. So I'd understand the wisdom behind you asking those questions back to back. Part of the Learn to Swim program, the National Aquatic Center would be a huge part of how we actually control and institute that program. When you're dealing with kids and you're dealing with swimming, there's a lot of sensitivity with which you must approach this. As a parent, you would definitely want to know that there's a controlled environment that is safe for the child to learn to swim. So we have been having the conversations about the Learn to Swim program, but we only have the Aquatic Center. And we're certainly hoping that once we complete the National Aquatic Center, we did put it in our manifesto, we will have a national Learn to Swim program, and also have the Intersect program on the weekend as well. And so we're expecting that we would see some serious movement once we come to the end of the completion of the actual physical structure of the National Aquatic Center.
Yes. Good.
I just want to say on record, I no longer cover sports as much.
Because I know you cover sports. These are the questions I will get from you.
But I'll ask one question. Whether intentionally or unintentionally, there seems to have been some sort of model that has happened between some of our athletes and the University of Texas in the United States, with one being Julian Alfred, then you have Naomi London, and next up we have JD Emmanuel. Are there any intentions there to formalize any sort of partnership, working arrangement, working agreement? Because it seems as though that particular university has taken interest in St. Lucian athletes.
You found your form again. Yeah, that is a very interesting question. We've thought about it. We've seen the benefits of doing it that way, but doing it that way may mean that you pretty much alienate thousands of universities that may want to eventually offer us even better programs for our sprinters. And that is why I said earlier, we've been having conversations with certain institutions, including, I will just mention one, Syracuse University, who has been looking at St. Lucia closely and looking at the talent available in St. Lucia and wanting to have conversations with the minister and the ministry for programs similar to what you are recommending, so as to have sort of a monopoly on our talent. But as a minister, I cannot encourage any form of monopoly in any way, shape, or form. So we have to keep it as open as possible to universities all over the US that may decide that they may offer us even better terms and conditions for our athletes.
All right. So, on right. That's it. Keep it. Yeah, I get. Thank you. Right. Hold you.
So that's the important. Green in motion. Yeah, so that's as I said. Yeah, and in a worst case scenario, we have a shower there that they can use. So this is where the police post will be. So the court police then take possession of the prisoners, and they handle the prisoners from there on in. Yeah. So in essence, this is the entrance for the public. They will enter downstairs, walk up the stair here. This is the elevator I told you for the disabled. Here is where the civil registry will be located. So this whole floor is for the staff. The office here is for the deputy registrar. Deputy registrar floor, offices, yeah, and we put in glass here so that they have a straight view into the park. Yeah, we kept all of them high for the court function, so you don't feel cramped, you know. So all the 15 odd feet high. No, they're working up there, man. They're working. So when the prisoner comes in here, you have an encasement here, which will be the docks created. The judges will come through here into a dock. The public will come in from that side into it. But it's a small court solely for magistrate activities. The larger court is on the other side. All right. This one. So this is one of the medium-sized criminal court. The largest court is at the top. So, as I said, the judges will come through. So if you walk across here, you can walk here now. You see the office? Yeah. I only go up here. Wow. Fantastic views. So they walk across from on that side. The bridge is right here. Then the judges walk in here. They come into their dock on that side. And the magistrate will walk down and enter her court on the other side.
How many people are working on the side?
On the side now?
How many people?
It varies. I think over 100 maybe combined. Yeah. All right, and this configuration is repeated on the other two floors, and then the 3 more floors.
Where's your bridge?
The bridge is right there. Yeah. So the bridge is right there, joining the two.
Right.
So they walk across the bridge, walk here,
right,
and they get into the dock.
Okay.
The judge, and then the magistrate will walk down and enter the court at the back.
Okay.
All right, and this is repeated
Yeah.
on the next level, on the next level. And the one on top is the full width of the building, the largest one. All right? But from what I understand, I haven't gone up there. I only go up when they cast. But from what I understand, you see everything.
Here's the third floor.
Here's the ground floor, level 1, level 2.
Look at the view already.
Yeah, and then you got level 3, level 4, level 5, and then the roof on top of that. So, that's it.
Hi, Chief, thank you.
Yeah, I know you have to run. Take care. Thanks. You can walk back down.
Peters!
Mr. Minister.
All right, our next speaker is the Minister with responsibility for equity, labor, gender and elderly affairs, social justice and consumer welfare, the Honorable Emma Hippolyte.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Minister.
I have a very short statement for you because today I have no voice. I have a cold. First, let me thank you for being here. As the minister in this new ministry, I think over the past 3 weeks, a few things has happened, and I think maybe it's good to have a good conversation on them. I will start by maybe speaking a bit on a meeting which I attended together with the Permanent Secretary, Department of Labor. The two of us attended a conference in the Bahamas, coordinated and put together by the Organization of American States. And there we were looking at what we call just transition to the blue and green economy. And that is where we sat, and you had members from the Caribbean as well as part of South America looking at some of the policy issues that we have to put together to look at prepare ourselves to move into the blue and green economy. And then we try to put that in the context of what is happening with our farmers, what's happening with our fishers, what are the transitions we need to put together, what are the policy issues we have to put together, how we are going to engage both existing farmers and fishers as well as our young people to ensure that we have food to feed ourselves and protein to survive. I see a lot of you here are young persons, so it's important. I think you're all smiling, and I hope all of you are eating, so that's of interest to you. So we sat and it was important that we had that conversation. So we did that about maybe 3 weeks ago. I came back for a week and then I went back out. But before going back out, the weekend of 8th of March was International Women's Day. So I stayed here to celebrate our women and girls for International Women's Day. We recognize and acknowledge the work of some of our women, persons who made contribution again in agriculture, in education. We recognize some of our foster parents as well, at least 2 of our ladies who perform the role of foster parents for our children. I think that was important for us at the Ministry of Equity. One of the ladies that we recognized on the 8th was Mrs. Thecla Deterville for her contribution to the development of women. Thecla and myself goes back a long way. The work that she had done in terms of pushing the women movement together, and her focus as well on the development of women, the training, the work she did as a HR person. And while I was out this week, just Saturday, I heard of her passing. So sometimes it is so important that we give people the flowers while they're there. So I really want to take this moment again to express my condolences on behalf of all the women of St. Lucia to her family on her passing, and to thank them for the work that she had done in advancing women generally, the development of women in our country. We had a good session on the 8th. That was during the day. In the evening, I attended this session of the International Fire Engineers. And there we had all our females who serve in what you call the service sector, which is in fire, police, prisons, SLASPA, they were there throughout the region, and they had a whole week again in St. Lucia, again focusing on women. So I want to take this moment to congratulate them and to recognize the work that is being done by our women in these unique areas, because sometimes there are areas, we think of them as areas assigned only for men. And it was good that St. Lucia could have hosted this group of women from the Caribbean, and to recognize that women can contribute equally to men. And all we want from all workers is to give of your best. I want to take this moment to do this. Again, last week as well, I represented the government and people of St. Lucia at the United Nations. And there we had to make a presentation because the session was on there is a commission on the status of women. And that conference is 2 weeks. Last week was for a ministerial conference, and this week there is a technical component. So I attended and returned last night to St. Lucia. And again, I was able to speak on where we are at. I was pleased when I listened to the conversations throughout the week. I'm very pleased as to where we are at in St. Lucia. Our previous minister, Dr. Poyet, had ensured done the work to ensure that we had the passing of the domestic violence bill. And now our work is to ensure that we implement it aggressively. And as I sat there for the week, I realized some of the work that we have to do. I was accompanied at that conference by my permanent secretary in the Ministry of Equity, Dr. Hippolyte Manuel. And at the same time, in between time, we sat down and prepared the work program for implementation as we were right there. We spoke as well at that conference. In my presentation, I spoke about what St. Lucia is doing in terms of the Department of Labor, the tripartite arrangement between government, workers, and the union, and employers. The fact that in order for us to move forward as a developing country, that all groups must come together and have agreements as to how we move forward in terms of our productivity. As a country, there is no room for what I would say, major conflicts. I believe that there is room for us to sit around the table, employers, workers, and governments, and plan ahead. But when you look at the external environment, we need to understand that as small island developing states, we need to sit down and see what is in our best interests. What is in the interest of the worker is in the interest of the employer. What's in the interest of the employer and the worker is in the interest of government. So collectively, we sit together, we map the way forward. So I was able to report on our tripartite arrangements. I was able to report on the work that we're doing within the Department of Labor and the ILO to look at what we call a decent work program, country work program, and that I will speak on later because we're still working on that program. But all I'm saying is, as a new minister with these responsibilities, I was pleased that over the past 3 weeks or so, I was able to immerse myself in the regional and international thread to understand what is happening out there and how we can take what is happening out there and bring it and apply the local context to it and see how we move forward. Let's move on to 3 things.
Questions?
Young ladies, what did you do for International Women's Day? Don't ask me questions. You, what did you do? You rested. What did you do? Yeah, I need to be able to share with you.
It was a day of rest.
It
was a day of rest.
It was a day of rest, but there's a lot more you need to do. You need to raise the consciousness of women in terms of their rights, responsibilities, and the role in national development. Important. And that's what we did. That's what he did. Important. Our role in national development is important.
Yes, Minister. Happy belated International Women's Day, since that has just passed. What key legislative priorities would you say that your ministry or work plan would your ministry be seeking to adopt for the next few, I would say, months into next year as it relates to your portfolio?
Well, for women in particular, as I said, one of the major pieces of legislation for us is the domestic violence bill. And that's violence against both, and that's gender, both men and women. What we're going to do is to dissect this piece of legislation. And you may recall, just the week before I left, we had in Parliament the young people discussing the domestic violence bill. And I want to commend them on that. I mean to commend them on that piece of debate. I attended. They handed me their recommendations. There was some, because they commented, they critiqued the existing piece of legislation. So this document, I have to sit at my department, look at it, see what they're saying, make recommendations to the cabinet, and then, if needed, go to Parliament to amend the existing domestic violence bill. That is the legislative part on that. In terms of labor, for example, we are reviewing the Labor Act now. That's another piece of legislation that requires revision. We're going to look at that. There's a piece of legislation as it relates to children. We are now, it's now with the AG, we are giving it another set of revision before it gets into the Parliament. But for the domestic violence bill, some of the work we have to do is to raise the consciousness of women and men. Raise that consciousness and ensure we have guidelines for the key stakeholders, the police. When you get a report, what are some of the things that you must do? How do we protect? Some of the work must be done also within my own ministry. In terms of our social workers on the ground, you have the family court, a lot of various government departments that we need to come together, work together to ensure that we do the protection, also the prevention. I think the prevention of domestic violence, we need to do a lot of work with you guys because you would be the cause of. So we cannot deal with the ladies by just protecting them when we don't pay attention to the prevention. And the prevention is where we work with you gentlemen. So we also have work to do with boys and men for prevention. Okay, so there is a lot of work. I'm going to be coming back here. I'm going to need your help in terms of the communication. And I believe as long as we understand the value of family, and if we understand the whole concept of love and protection, then we will minimize domestic violence. And that must be high up on our entire agenda. It's the respect for people that is critical. Respect and love. If you love somebody, you do not hurt in that person. Okay? That's what I know. That's how I was raised.
Right.
Yeah, and if you love the person and you respect the person and you protect the person, then you don't get into any physical confrontation. Physical, emotional, verbal, all of the various types of abuse. And the abuse is not only for women, the abuse of older persons, a lot of emphasis on that as well. So there's a lot of educational work that has to happen in my ministry. I need to tell you that we are putting things in motion and in gear to address them.
Right.
Yes?
Yeah.
Thank you very much and continue doing the good works.
Thank you.
The government of St. Lucia has announced a series of targeted measures aimed at averting a water crisis in St. Lucia based on weather forecasts and water levels by WASCO. In the short term, 3 immediate initiatives are in the pipeline, which include the reconstruction of a section of the northern pipeline from Bonte to Cap Estate Groseille, the barging of water from the Commonwealth of Dominica to avert a water crisis within the hospitality sector, and water harvesting and conservation practices. Prime Minister Honorable Philip J. Pierre confirmed that the initiatives form part of a coordinated response developed in consultation with the St. Lucia Hospitality and Tourism Association, the Chamber of Commerce, the Ministry of Tourism, the Ministry of Public Utilities, and the Office of the Prime Minister. These measures are critical at stabilizing the water supply, particularly in the north of the island during the current dry season. The plans to barge water from Dominica to support hospitality operations are at an advanced stage, with initial shipments expected on island in the coming weeks. This measure is designed to curb the depletion of local water sources and supplies from the 8% desilted John Compton Dam, allowing greater prioritization of supply to residential communities while supporting commercial and tourism operations.
The St. Lucia Tourism Association, working with the government and working with Vasco, are going to be importing water from Dominica using a barge, Mr. Speaker. And that's also important because the hotels and people in the north have to truck water from the south of the country to take it down to Groseille and the north. So that's going to be easier, and because of the foresight of the government in allowing Alia to build their jetty, the barge can come in there and the water can be disbursed from there, which is closer than the north of the community.
The Prime Minister hastened to add that if the situation further deteriorates, the government of St. Lucia will spare no effort to ensure the water is barged into the island to supply this much-needed resource to the people of St. Lucia.
Yeah. All right, our next speaker is the Minister with Responsibility for Tourism.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Ladies and gentlemen, how is everybody this morning? Good? Why are you looking so pensive? Hamilton.
You look very soft today.
I don't want to see Hamilton, that's all.
Why?
Huh?
What have I done?
You want me to tell you?
Yeah, tell me.
All right, I think I want to deal with four matters this morning. To bring up reinforce a couple matters that we dealt with at Parliament last week, Tuesday, and to deal with the beach situation at Ridgeway, and also to deal with an upcoming event, the Ease of Doing Business Forum. I think let me start off with Parliament last week, Tuesday. I wanted to highlight a couple of matters which were brought before Parliament. The first one had to do with the borrowing, because quite a lot had been said by the opposition about how much government was borrowing, over $600 million and whatnot. And I think we presented the clear facts that not all of the money was in fact money being borrowed, that some of it was providing a guarantee. One of which was for SLASPA, and we'll come back to that one. There was money being borrowed for WASCO. And it is quite interesting that earlier today, the United Workers' Party issued a full statement about borrowing monies to solve WASCO problems. And in fact, we should have solved WASCO problems already in the last 5 years. And I think we need to repeat the point that there are two major issues with WASCO. One of which is an outdated distribution network, which has to be addressed. It is not a problem that was formed in the last 5 years. It's a problem that has existed historically. And we must all agree as a country that the distribution network for WASCO must be upgraded. There's no two ways about it. And if some of you would recall, as far back as Kenyatta being Prime Minister, there was an attempt to statutarize WASCO, to be able to allow WASCO to bring in private sector financing to meet its needs. And it was vigorously opposed by the United Workers' Party. And that, in a sense, stalled some of the progress that had to be made. The second aspect of WASCO, which you have to reflect on, is the dredging of the John Compton Dam. And the Prime Minister and Minister for Housing, representative for Casimir Central, addressed it in his presentation. How dare can the United Workers' Party speak about the fact that there's a water crisis because we did not dredge that dam properly? I think everybody knows the issue that the dredging of the dam was done under the United Workers' Party, and the scandalous, event that was. And I want you to go back to the facts of this matter, to lay it bare that there's no issue of dredging taking place at this government. There's no responsibility for the John Compton Dam levels of water related to this government. And that has to be clearly established. The other part of the funding, which I really want you to reflect on, is that last Tuesday in Parliament was the first time in 2 years that the government went to Parliament to borrow monies. First time in 2 years. Now, you're all old enough to remember in the last few years in St. Lucia, how many times governments have been to Parliament to borrow money. There's one time we used to call it Nadi Puete, because every Tuesday we were going to Parliament to borrow monies. We had not been to Parliament for 2 years to borrow any monies. 2 years. And one of the motions for borrowing had to do with monies that were made available to St. Lucia 4 years ago. As part of our cooperation agreement with Taiwan, they made monies available to the government of St. Lucia for us to finance ongoing projects and other expenses. We never touched it. We never had a need to draw on the money. Never did. Most of the works in St. Lucia have been financed out of revenue and other commitments that we've made. But finally, the agreement is coming to an end because it's a 4-year agreement, and we are about to negotiate a new agreement. One of the outstanding items on that existing prevailing agreement is those monies that we have never drawn down. So think about that. There you have a government for the first time in 2 years coming to borrow money, and secondly, having to draw down on monies that were part of an agreement 4 years ago that it had never utilized. And as the agreement is about to end, we're now going to utilize it so then we can finance developments moving forward. So how can you now come to Parliament or even come to the public and say, oh, this is a government of borrowing and historic levels of borrowing? And I think that the public needs to understand that they've never had a government with more fiscal prudence than this government. And I've just given you 2 examples. And let me add a third one, the borrowing for the guarantee for SLASPA. And the talk was we were doing it for GPH. And the truth of the matter is the reconstruction of Berth 4 has nothing to do with cruise services, has nothing to do with GPH. It's about cargo and the capacity, the capability of the berth to bear the weight of the crane and the reach stacker that they use. That, in fact, when we were negotiating the GPH agreement, the only requirement was to repair a kink in the berth. But of course, subsequent to that, when they bought the new piece of equipment, they realized that the berth was actually collapsing. It was not as strong as they thought it was. And of course, now they have to reconstruct it, costing that amount of money. And government is guaranteeing a loan for them. And I'm pointing out those points to make it very clear to you the level of misinformation and disinformation that is put out there. And just creating that sense in the country of things that are just not true. To even suggest that Berth 4 is being reconstructed for GPH, and GPH is making so much money, again tells you the distortion that exists. So that's my first 2 points. The third one I want to raise is that You'd have heard a lot about the ease of doing business in this country. For years and years, we've talked about improving the ease of doing business in St. Lucia. And you may ask, why is the ease of doing business important? It is important because it's about the creation of an environment where business can be established, can be managed properly, efficiently, and business can thrive. And for business to thrive, they need to have the operating space which is conducive for such. In the government procedures, government regulations, government legislation, there are certain provisions that sometimes inhibit business from functioning at the level at which they ought to. And over the years, we've been trying to remove those barriers, remove those hurdles. But still, there are numerous complaints about the speed at which businesses can be established and can operate and do their business efficiently. And a few years ago, the World Bank used to issue an index, ease of doing business index, which has stopped. But whereas they stopped the index, it should not stop us from making sure we create a business environment that is more conducive for business development in the country. So we're going to once again put on the agenda as a priority the creation of a business environment for businesses in St. Lucia to be established, managed, and to operate efficiently. So we've decided to bring together all the stakeholders, private sector, public sector, and let's have a dialogue. We want the private sector to say to us all the bottlenecks they see in the system. We want the private sector agencies that are responsible for facilitating business in the country to discuss with the private sector what are the changes and reforms that can be undertaken to allow them to be more efficient in the conduct of their business. So the Ease of Doing Business Forum is a really important activity, and I want to encourage all St. Lucians, all private sector organizations, and of course the public sector that we're responsible for, on April 9th for us to meet for the day, to discuss those issues, and to see how we can create in St. Lucia a business landscape, a business environment that really encourages business. We want St. Lucia to be positioned as a primary destination for investment and for conducting business. And there are lots of provisions. If you do come on April the 9th, I think you will get a very good sense of, and I'm saying if you do come, meaning that I expect you to come on April the 9th, for you to really understand that some of the barriers and the hurdles that exist that in many ways stifle business in St. Lucia. We have a broader objective for doing that as well. We also want to place a lot of priority on small business development in the country, from helping it be established, giving them technical assistance to make sure they are structured properly, they manage properly, provide financing for them. And we have plans to establish a small business development center in St. Lucia that will replace SEDU as we know it, and for government to put a lot of resources into the creation of a small business, to give us support for small business development in St. Lucia. So that Ease of Doing Business Forum really is a precursor to that, so we can start removing some of those barriers. When you consider, for example, in one day you can establish an international business company in St. Lucia, but in one day you cannot establish a local company in St. Lucia. So it just tells you, there's so many processes that exist that we need to get past. And on that day, it's a real reflection on those and a commitment, certainly from the private sector part, the public sector part, for us to start addressing and reforming to make sure we give that support to businesses in St. Lucia, not just small businesses, but all businesses in St. Lucia, both manufacturing of goods as well as services. So let this be the first invitation to all of you to be there on April the 9th to get a sense of some of the issues that will be brought to the fore. That's my third issue. My fourth one has to do with, a lot of what has gone on in the last week about the beach at Mount Pimad and, the actions by a particular gentleman. I think the first thing I want to do is to to actually apologize to the public and to the developer for what happened. I think the public deserves an apology. And I think the developer also deserves an apology. Because the simple truth is that our agencies failed on this occasion to really perform some of their basic functions. And let me give you the background. Some of you would have known some of the issues. The developer was asked by Invest Lucia to develop a beach park for the public, for St. Lucians going to the beach, because there had been so many complaints about a hotel, a resort being developed there, and it's a beach that St. Lucians frequent, and now it's a special place, whatnot. But it was a place where there are no public facilities. There are no proper vending facilities. And we said to the developer that if you're going to build $1 billion resort there, your guests will be coming and use that same beach. But look at the state of the beach. No toilets, no showers, no lifeguard, no vending facilities, that we needed it upgraded. And the developer agreed at his cost, at the developer's cost, to build a beach park as well as do beach improvement works. That was the agreement. The beach park has been completed and handed over to us. So we're now customizing it for the purposes of bringing in vendors and the public to start using it. The children's park was also added to it. The final part is the beach improvement works. That's the final part. The developer needs to open their resort in the next few weeks, so they really need to move on with the works that has to be done. On our side, the agencies need to make sure that Marie Shack that was being moved is now supposed to move into the beach park, the new beach park facility, where she has a dedicated space in there. To undertake the beach improvement works, it will be heavy equipment, it will be sand, it will be, there's a lot that be going on. The developer has to protect the public. You don't want anybody going there to get injured, to get any mishap. So there has to be a level of protection offered. It is the responsibility of the NCA and Invest in this case to let the public know that the beach will be closed for 2 weeks for beach improvement works. They ought to do it. They're supposed to do it. And they were told to do it. So they're supposed to ensure that all the necessary public education is done. Of course, the developer puts up the fence, put in construction, safety, and some signs, whatnot. Now, there are people, I first got a call from a member of the public, a friend of mine who told me if I knew about this, and they were obviously upset about it. I made some calls, and I explained this is for 2 weeks, and it is to do beach improvement works, and for the safety of the public, the fence has to be erected so people do not go onto that side and get affected, but they can use the other part of the beach. Still, the agencies have to make the announcements and let people know. But of course, then, one individual goes there, sees what has happened, makes a reel, broadcasts it. I call him, I say, let me just explain to you what's happening. This is the case, this is for a period of time, this is what goes, just like I explained to you. Explain everything to him. And he decided, nah, I'm taking down that fence. I said, boss, do not take down the fence. It's there for 2 weeks. It's to protect the public. No, you're going to take down the fence. I said, you can't do that. It's for 2 weeks. It's just to do the beach improvement works. So I explained everything to him. I asked the agency responsible to call him and explain to him, which they did. And he still decides, and he puts up another reel showing that he used a wire cutter and he cut the fence and removed it. Now, why would you do that? You cannot say you did not know, because I know I gave you an explanation. I know one of the agencies explained to you that it is to facilitate beach improvement works. But you insist you do not want a fence there, so you're going to cut it down. Now, and the end, the public says the nastiest things about the developer, accuses the developer of all sorts of mishaps and misdeeds, which is not fair to the developer, because the developer is at their expense improving the beach, built a beach park for our purposes that we made a request for. And I don't want to comment as to the individual, because I'm waiting this week for him to go to the Halls of Justice and tear down all the hoarding that's there. because the road is usually closed, so traffic cannot pass there. Maybe he should take out the road signs and tell the vehicles, and I hope he can come to the waterfront and tear down all the hoarding that is there and tell people to walk on the waterfront because they are accustomed to it. The simple point is, I'm trying to make is that, look, there are instances where construction works will take place and you have to put in the precautionary and the necessary, requirements for health and safety. You're supposed to do that. That's a requirement. Now, I understand if the public is not informed, everybody has a legitimate right to complain and say, why was the public not informed? And you're right in doing so. You're right in doing so. And I am prepared to accept that the agencies failed in that regard. It should have put out public announcements to indicate that the beach will be closed and for how long and why. They should have done so. So we have to apologize to the public that we're inconvenienced. But I cannot under any circumstances accept that the behavior of that individual was acceptable. And especially when I know I explained to him, I know he was also informed by one of the agencies why this was happening. And I don't have to tell you anymore. I mean, we cannot encourage that kind of behavior. But Yellow knows what motivates him.
Minister, in line of question in relation to that, will we see any sort of legal repercussions coming for that particular individual for the actions taken?
Well, I cannot tell the police what to do, what not to do. But what would disappoint me is that if it's a young man from my constituency that had a minor infraction anywhere in town, we would have arrested him by now.
All right, and going back to the last Tuesday in Parliament, we know that government sought the approval of Parliament to approve basically lending. We know as well that we are looking at a 2050 goal as it relates to debt to GDP ratio. What sort of buffer have we put in place to really see that we stay within our fiscal policy and not overextend ourselves as it relates to this borrowing that we are doing?
Well, I think it's a constant worry. The Ministry of Finance must always ensure that we stay within prudential limits. And of course, the more you borrow, if your GDP does not grow consonant with your borrowing, you'll start getting a little off. And there are guidelines that are set for small islands like ourselves. There are some of us who don't believe those guidelines I wouldn't say fair and reasonable, but those guidelines are really a true statement of the economic conditions in the country. But solution needs to develop, and we need to borrow. And we have to borrow very conscious of the fact that you cannot go beyond certain limits. I don't think the borrowing places us in any precarious situation. And when you look at the debt to GDP ratio of St. Lucia compared to some other countries in the Caribbean, we're very well positioned. But those instances, the water supply in particular, those were needed. In the case of SLASPA is a guarantee. The improvement for education, special education, continuing education, these are necessary. And again, it's why we make the case for the CIP, because you need money to finance the national development programs in the country. And no country is coming giving us grants. And we're certainly not getting low interest loans. So we have to get it from somewhere. We need to raise the monies necessary. We want to introduce universal health care. Where the money is going to come from? We're going to be opening St. Jude's. Do you know how much more that will add to our recurrent bill? We need to repair major roads in St. Lucia. The Casimir Highway needs to be upgraded. In fact, there's a strong view that in addition to introducing the 4-lane highway, we should also build an overpass. Because that's just what is needed now in the kind of development taking place. So sometimes you just need to borrow for you to be able to finance your development.
Yeah, and finally, as you spoke about borrowing and major infrastructure projects, Minister, we know that the West Coast Road Rehabilitation or Redevelopment Project has been, somewhat of a sore point, being that you're now going back to lend as it relates to this particular project. Could this be the final time that we are seeing this and, finally bringing this particular project to a close?
I hope so, trust me. This project, when it started before our government coming into office in 21, I share the view with most St. Lucians that we need to see a closure of that project.
Just circling back quickly to the issue at the beach, notwithstanding the shortcomings that would have, I think, on a multi-agency level, I think another sore point of that is that the beach chair vendors, they were still renting out beaches on this side that was cordoned off. And if that is an active construction site, that in itself carries its own set of consequences there. So what do you say to that part in terms of how are those beach chair vendors themselves going to be regulated or advised in that regard?
I mean, it's a very good question, because when I saw it, the photo, first thing I did was call the agency and ask, but that's a construction site. But apparently the beach chair vendors just insist that,
in the same mode, which that individual is behaving, that nobody should stop them from going there. How could nobody stop from going where a construction site is, when it's for health and safety of yourself and for, your patrons? What could it be? And I think it's just irresponsible, to be honest. But there is an agency whose role it is to license and regulate such activities. And we just have to ensure that we enforce it. Because if something should happen to someone, who bears the consequences? And that's important. We have to bear that in mind. And we cannot become a country of lawlessness. I mean, where anybody does anything how they want. There are people, when you are aggrieved by laws, when you are aggrieved by government policy, there are legitimate means for you to express it. Many, many ways in which you can express it. And I'm not saying to anybody, do not criticize the decision. And if you don't support a beach park, then say so. I have no problem if anybody said, I don't agree with government policy on X, Y, and Z. Not everybody will agree with government policy. Not everybody would. But there crosses a line. And you can protest if you want. I mean, it's one thing we said, I don't know if you recall, when the last governor was in office, they cordoned off around the parliament and whatnot. Our position is, if you don't agree with government policy, you have a right to protest and express your disapproval. Nobody must take that right away from you. If you want to have a public protest, you write to the police and you have a public protest. I will be one of the first people supporting the right of anybody to protest. And if you don't agree, you can write online if you want, expressing your disagreement. I don't agree with Minister Ile, and here are the reasons why I disagree with him. That's welcome. Maybe we are not doing everything right, and we might adjust it because there is a legitimate explanation of why somebody doesn't agree. But it does not give you the right to act in such an irresponsible manner. So I'm one of those that will encourage people to express contrary views. Let all ideas contend. And sometimes, like I said, we're probably not doing everything right in any case. And we can learn from other person's criticisms. But it doesn't mean if you criticize, I should not defend what I'm doing. Because part of it too is me explaining to you why we're doing it the way we're doing it. And that's what a healthy democracy is about, is that back and forth, and people being able to ventilate how they feel about issues. But it cannot be that if you disagree with something, you just go too far left. It doesn't work that way.
Good afternoon, Minister. So just bringing back to parliamentary session last week, Tuesday, I know in your statement you fully defended the Citizen by Investment program, especially when it comes to the UK visa. UK visa. Right. Yeah, but I do apologize, but this more right. But this more comes on with an interview that I did have with the leader of the opposition, Mr. Shastny, on Friday, on indication, over the phone.
Did you ask him why he was not in Parliament?
He actually did. He actually says off island on medical reasons.
Well, he's on medical reasons.
Yeah, so, but in regards to that, after he heard on your statement on the funding of the Citizen by Investment program, I mean, one of his points was brought across is stating how right now we are currently on the next update on a report from CIP, and the main reason for the UK issuing this was based on the last report. And the next one that was due was supposed to be a month before elections, and then we still have another one due, I believe, by end of March or April. So I just want to know, in your events on that, basically, as you talk positively about the CIP and basically
I never knew that Mr. Shastny was Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. Kingdom or Minister of Home Affairs of the United Kingdom. He alone has come up with that. That's the reason. You know, so I don't know what I can say. I really can't answer anything Mr. Shastri says because that's not the case. The report has been finalized. Financial statements are being signed out, so it's ready to go to Parliament. You know, that's surely not the case. That's all I can tell you. And I think my statement spoke for itself. The truth is, Mr. Shastri must accept that he has led a campaign against St. Lucia's CIP nationally and internationally. He has led the campaign. He has tried his best. He has lobbied. He has lobbied for the action to be taken against us. He is lobbied in the form of making statements internationally. He's been making calls internationally for, CIPs like ours to be treated in a particular way. And I think, he believes it's his responsibility to do so. We believe our responsibility is to deliver for the people of St. Lucia, to take care of the people of St. Lucia. And I've always said, we will not do everything right. We are human after all, and when we fall short, we have to step up. But in this particular instance, I don't know that the CIP is in any way responsible for the actions of the United Kingdom government. Plain and simple. And that remains the position. I express it publicly in the House that it is not the reason, because that has never been conveyed to us. So we will continue to push ahead to make our CIP the best managed, the most robust, and very shortly we'll be issuing new regulations to strengthen the CIP by introducing an annual quota, a minimum financial, worth. We will strengthen it throughout to make sure that our CIP is the strongest program in the Caribbean. And what more can we do? We will not abandon the CIP and make Mr. Shastri smile.
Have you been privy to any, let's say, follow-up conversations with the UK government as it pertains to their decision as it relates to our visa? Have there been any follow-up conversations following the announcement?
So there have been follow-up conversations, and we will. The UK is a partner of St. Lucia, and the UK has a historical relationship with us. We may not have liked the way in which this matter was portrayed, but we will continue to work with CIP. We believe for our CIP to be successful, we need to work with our international partners. We need to be able to communicate with them, and we continue to do so.
Okay. But when we look at the effects that no longer having a visa might have, I know earlier you spoke about ease of business, and the UK has been some place historically that we have conducted business with. A visa or the costing may come as an additional hurdle to private sector individuals, MSMEs. You also have the issue where sometimes visitors, countries that are given these sort of restrictions, the perception of that place changes. How do you see the decision by the UK affecting business, affecting and tourism possibly as well?
Well, tourism, I don't see an effect because it is outbound from the United Kingdom. It might affect tourism to the United Kingdom. I don't know that St. Lucia numbers are so significant. In terms of business, it's a good point you made because it's part of your brand reputation and how your brand looks and feels. But the UK has assured us that it is something which is constantly under review, and they will continue to review it. And it's really up to them. Our solutions is a very telling lesson for us that we have to take responsibility for ourselves in the international system. Nobody's going to give you a free pass. Nobody's going to give you any comforts, really. You have to take care of yourself, no matter how small you are. And if we had lost sight of that, this is a powerful reminder to us that you're slaughtered and nobody will have pity for you. You have to get up and do what's necessary to make sure that your country prospers. And that's the mindset we must have as St. Lucians, that nobody is going to give us a free lunch. We need to go out there and do what's necessary and make sure our country succeeds.
Too often we have issues that arise and I think in general, to the general public, we have politicians beating around or skirting the issue as opposed to addressing it head on. I speak of the dredging of the John Compton Dam. In general, you hear that this organization is responsible. Who is responsible? What are the specifics with regards monies? How the money is used, and who is to be taken to task?
Well, it is a matter I dealt with
when I was in opposition. I'm sure I can schedule my presentation in the House on that matter. And Minister Frederick has also spoken quite a bit about that matter. And in fact, in the House last week, Tuesday, he actually wrote an auditor's report on that project and what was stated. So I think the information is available as to what happened and how it was managed. As to what is to be done about it, I don't know that I can comment on that myself. But you are right that people need to understand exactly what happened, what did not happen. But there's a lot of information out there as to exactly what happened. The simple truth is, at the end of the project, the dredging was barely done. Tens of millions of dollars were spent on a project that's turned out to be a miserable failure. That's as much as I can say.
Well, if you had to put your finger on one individual,
Yeah, there are other agencies and entities responsible for dealing with that issue, and I think they are dealing with it. We will, yeah. Probably saying no.
Okay, that's all.
I think we're going to
Good afternoon, Minister. The Marriott Hotel released a press release in relation to all the public dialogue that's been happening, just to establish some.
Marriott, is that?
Let me get the correct name for you. Right, Celine Autograph Marriott Hotel Project, VG. So they released a public statement. Just to, in light of recent public commentary, and
When was it released?
I'm not sure, over the weekend. In it speaks about the zoning and historical context, development overview. It also states that the project will enhance natural ventilation and air circulation, preserve view corridors for surrounding neighborhoods, which is one of the major concerns. In light of this, do you have anything to say on that project?
Again, I'll tell you something. When you're involved in public policy and public service, whatnot, and there will always be people who don't agree with that perspective. There always. And when you bring in partisan politics, it becomes more accentuated. There are political parties that will not agree on the same national projects, whatnot. Social media in modern times have made this even more, glaring, that every individual who has a dissenting voice can go on social media and express their dissenting voice and say just about anything without regard for facts or sometimes factual whatnot. So in the case of this hotel, we had a community consultation. The community was asked to come and receive a presentation of what is proposed for the area and to give feedback to the designers. Community came, some persons were residents. Most people there did not even live in VG. But it's a public interest, so anybody can come and, attend the public consultation. And a number of, matters were raised. And I spoke, and I remember saying to the meeting that I actually agree with a lot of the matters raised. And I think the designers who were there need to take those matters into consideration and address them as best as possible. So issues were raised with issue of sewer, issue of generation of power, traffic management, all those issues, access to the beach, bridges. I mean, a lot of issues were raised. And we said to the designers to go back, take all those matters into consideration, and come back again with responses to those questions raised by the public and residents. The next day, a couple of persons who were in the meeting and who had expressed their views started a petition to stop the hotel. Now, you were just in a meeting 2 nights ago where you express your views, and you at least wait for the designers to come back and say, you know what, I'm not happy with their solutions. I stick to my position and I want the hotel stopped. You're free to do so. But at least give the designers, in the spirit of consultation, to come back and tell you how they're addressing your concerns. Because if you say to me, I don't support the hotel because I believe you must generate your own electricity. Or somebody did say that. They don't want their electricity going to VG to be used by the hotel. You understand? So, then the hotel will say 50% of all our power will be raised through solar, so there won't be a drain. I'm just saying that. Somebody raised about sewer, and that's a very valid one. How are you going to handle sewage and those matters and the scent associated, even if after you've treated the water? Let the designers come back and say, this is what we propose to do. This is how we want to handle it. If somebody raises issues about parking in the area, developers will come back and say, we want to create a small car park, 2 stories, it will hold 60 vehicles. This is also, give them a chance to come back and say how they're addressing your concerns. But if there is no, I don't want to say sincerity, if you're not allowing the consultation to take place, and there's a lot being said. I did one of the reels that the developers promise they will bring in this and that, and they'll do all those things, and these are lies and whatnot. I mean, how do we have genuine interaction and engagement if that's how it is done? So I'm going to wait to hear and see what the designers come back with. I know one of the challenges the designers had, because we raised it very early. They purchased the land, and it was not purchased under the Labour Party. Let me repeat that. The land was not purchased under the St. Lucia Labour Party. The land was sold to the developers under the United Workers' Party for the express purposes of building a hotel. You get me? It was sold under the United Workers' Party with the express purposes of building a hotel there. Of course, we inherited, so we have to deal with it. The sale of the land included the King's Chain. You hearing me? Included the King's Chain. The designers designed a hotel that virtually occupied all the lands that they bought. And we had to point out to them, you cannot occupy the King's Chain, you cannot go so far, because St. Lucia needs access to the beaches. We said so to them. And they were not even really aware. They thought they had bought all this land, it was sold to them, and they were going to build a nice low-rise hotel. So we told them you have to move it backwards. So they move it backwards by about 100 feet. And therefore, what they did to be able to keep the same number of rooms, they went higher. So it's a smaller footprint, but a higher building. So now in building it higher, it's affecting a couple of houses at the back. So you can understand now how the developers feel. Because you cannot now say to them, sorry, you cannot go so tall, you have to stay 2 stories, because a few houses at the back might be affected. Well, when they bought the land and they bought the King's Chain and the design, nobody told them those things. But we're not complaining. We need to work with them. We need to be able to solve the problems. We need to try and make sure as many people as possible are happy. Not everybody will be happy. Not everybody will be totally happy. But we need the development in the country. We need to move the country forward. There have been hotels there before. The lands were sold to them with the purposes of building a hotel. So we need to try and solve the problem, and we are constructively engaged to solve their problems, because people elect us to solve their problems. And that's what we want to try to do. But that's a little background to the developers and what happened.
Next question would be, obviously you mentioned that it was purchased during the tenure of the UWP. Who owned the land and who sold the land?
You know what? I'm not going to tell you. Go and do some research. Because you might say I'm picking on a certain name. And I don't want you to say that I'm picking on a certain name. So go and find out who it is that sold that land. That's all I am saying. You are media people. Go and find out who sold that land. And I ain't picking on nobody's name, so I'll keep quiet. And stop laughing because you be trained that you don't worry.
Any more questions?
Thank you very much.
All the wonders in the world, St. Lucia's only meant for me. So much history to be told and so much more for eyes to see. The colors feel the love, I can tell you all the way. Proud of it, proud of it, proud of it, proud of it. It don't matter where I voyage, it don't matter where I roam. Majestic beacons standing tall, they're guiding me back home. Raise your flags, the skies above, I can tell you all the way. So I could go up forever there to feel all the vibes and break away. I could take a trip to link up with friends and family. To my land of birth, to the place I love. No other island in the sun could ever replace you in my heart. And if I ever plan to leave, I go tell you from the start. To my land of birth, to the place I love. Put up your online, sing out the song. I am a down proud Lucia. Represent the land where you from. I am a down proud Lucia. From St. Lucia. It don't matter where I voyage, it don't matter where I go. Majestic beacons standing tall, they're guiding me back home. Raise your flag.
So the PM continues the journey with the baton, and he will be entering the Bindophile Park with some of the youth. So he's going to go down with the National Independence Battle. He's going around the field right now, and he's going to go into the Masha grounds with the National Independence Battle really. If you're just joining us, I say good morning to you. We are in the constituency of Castries East. The Honorable Philip Joseph Pierre, the Prime Minister of St. Lucia, has the National Independence Baton.
With all the wonders in the world, St. Lucia's only meant for me. So much history to be told, and so much more for eyes to see. The colors feel the love, I can tell you all the way. It don't matter where I voyage, it don't matter where I go. Majestic beacons standing tall, they're guiding me back home. Raise your flags, the skies above, I can tell you all the way. So I could go up forever there to feel all the vibes.
So the journey continues. The Honorable Philip Joseph Pierre, he's the Prime Minister of St. Lucia, and he's also the parliamentary representative for Castries East. He has
Islands sit incroyable. Proud of it, proud of it, proud of it, proud of it. Proud of it, proud of it, proud of it, proud of it. With all the wonders in the world, St. Lucia's only meant for me. So much history to be told and so much more for eyes to see. The colors feel the love, I can tell you all the way. Proud of it, proud of it, proud of it, proud of it. It don't matter where I voyage, it don't matter where I roam. Majestic beacons standing tall, they're guiding me back home. Raise your flags, the skies above, I can tell you all the way. So I could go up forever there to feel all the vibes and break away. I could take a trip to link up with friends and family.
Ladies and gentlemen, our final speaker today is Prime Minister of the Village of Chile. Prime Minister.
Good afternoon. Just to remind you, so the rain that fell this weekend.
We have lots of it there. A lot of it.
Already collecting, so collecting everything. If you harvested that rainwater, we have had rain for the whole week. I just want to make a statement about Wasco and water. The fact is, there is a water issue in St. Lucia and in the entire world because of climate change. Even though the Prime Minister changes, the water situation will not improve. I just want the public of St. Lucia to understand that this water situation is not a political situation. It is a situation that we must, as a country, decide that we have to get involved in water storage and water harvesting. We have to. The government will and has continued to spend millions of dollars on improving the water situation in the country. We have issues with aged infrastructure, we have issues with distribution. I will not go into the history of successive governments and how they manage Wasco. We haven't got to go into the past all the time. Fact is, there has been substantial investment by this government in Wasco. And fact is, the water situation is a situation that the entire country must take as a problem that we have to solve as a country. I want once more to implore the people of St. Lucia to try rainwater harvesting. I'll give you some examples. I saw several households with water tanks. I've noted an increase in the use of water tanks in the country. Several households in water tanks. The water tank is there with a Wasco pipe, and over it is a guttering dropping the rainwater in the ground. Have a look, have a look. You know, there are certain things in this country that we must take out of the political realm. The other Prime Minister will face the same water issues. There are certain things you must take out of politics. Especially now, the people of St. Lucia have spoken. They spoke in clear terms. So those who are annoyed, they can remain annoyed, but the people have spoken. The use of water harvesting. Look at the rain that fell this weekend. It rained for almost the entire weekend. If we had just, as a country, saved that water, we just saved it. Only what fell this weekend. If we had just saved it, we would have been, at least for another week, we'd have been okay as well. But the infrastructure is there. Just a simple modification. The pipe runs on the roof, it comes down into the ground. All you have to do is drop it in the tank. A simple modification. It doesn't take any money, it doesn't take anything. A simple modification. I want to implore, to beg the people of St. Lucia to not allow politicians and people who are seeking, who are self-serving for their own political persuasion to stop them from doing things that will improve their quality of life. This is a plea, my plea to them, particularly in that water situation. Please let us consider rainwater harvesting. Please. Politicians will come and go. The elections have been run. The Labour Party has won them. 16-1, we've won. That will not change. But the country, let us remove some situations from the hard-nosed political opinions, biased political opinions. Let's change, at least on that issue. At least. Your questions?
Prime Minister, in line of water harvesting, we know that you've been on a concerted campaign about this. Your voice has been out there about it. Can we possibly see some sort of probably visual aid to possibly help the public, general public, to understand the concept of water harvesting coming from the Office of the Prime Minister or any of the other line ministries that may be associated where this is concerned? And how else should someone take it upon themselves to understand, even just beyond your calls that you have been making?
I think the press has an important role to play in this regard. I think the water situation in this country has been diluted by some utterances, very much diluted for selfish purposes, diluted deliberately. Let's get about barging water from Dominica. I was clear that the hotels will see the battle. And I'm going to make it abundantly clear for all those who have ears, let them hear. If the people of St. Lucia need water and I have to barge it from Timbuktu, I will do it. Let me say it again. If the people of St. Lucia need water and I am the Prime Minister and the people need water, I will barge it in from Timbuktu if I have to. My position is clear. The people must not suffer. But let's get back to the reality of the water barging. The water barging situation came as a result of the St. Lucia Hotel and Tourism Association at a meeting declaring that they had issues with transporting water from the south and from Dennery into the north. Now, if the SNHT makes that statement, we are looking at it from several angles. First of all, the need of their clients, and secondly, our water resources are not infinite. They're not. We have to preserve and conserve it. The government of St. Lucia has never said, until this morning, what I'm saying now, and I said probably in the reason of the Office of the Prime Minister put out, is that the hotels and the government said they would assist in terms of helping them in the regulation, in the assurance that it was in order. And I also said that the Alia jetty in Rodney Bay, it was there at the proper time, at the correct time, and it could be used to barge the water in. And I also said that was brought up at a meeting which I held with the stakeholders. I was clear. And if we need water in the country, do I need the people without water? I'll say it again, I'll barge it in from Timbuktu if I have to. I will. That's my job, to see about the people, not to see about the fanciful wishes of political opponents. My job is to improve the quality of life of the people of St. Lucia. And whilst I have the mandate from the people, I will do it. But right now, as we speak, the barging of water is an initiative that the St. Lucia Hotel and Tourism Association is undertaking, and the government will give them all the logistical support that they need. That's the situation today. And that wasn't a government decision. It was a decision taken at a joint meeting of representatives of the SNHTA, WASCO, the Ministry of Tourism, the Ministry of Physical Development, the Chamber of Commerce. That was the position. I hope I've made it abundantly clear. I hope I have. For the last time, I hope I have.
Right. Prime Minister.
The political mischief, because the political mischief that's been created, these people suffer from lack of water too, you know. Bob Marley says, when the rain comes down, you don't fall in one man's house.
Right.
So when you create political mischief, you suffer for it too. I mean, when people applaud violence and crime and things, so I mean, the sad situation is that the Prime Minister's life might be threatened, but the Prime Minister has some level of security, just like the leader of the opposition. So when people believe that because of their political motives that they affect individuals, that is not the case. Not the case. It's the country. The country must always come first. The country. So I hope you've settled this water situation. And I hope all of us agree that there is need to harvest water and store water. And all of us, and the government, we're going to make some statements in the policy debate on water. I'm speaking to the Caribbean Development Bank on a loan to see if we can assist in getting some tanks to make water harvesting an integral part of our water strategy.
Yes, Prime Minister, finally, you have the leadership of the People Empowerment Ministry. Tell us a little bit about that ministry and some of the works that are expected to be derived from it, or some of the initiatives or policy initiatives that is currently being pursued under People Empowerment. Does this whole water harvesting also fall back under that?
Sure, it does. You're very intuitive. The government of the Labour Party, we make no apologies for putting people first. No apologies. We make no apologies for putting people first. All our policies are aimed at people directly or indirectly. The People's Empowerment Ministry is under the office of the Prime Minister, and it is to crystallize and to unify all initiatives that are aimed at improving people's lives from whatever source possible. Education, sports, social transformation, health, etc. All these areas of need for people will be crystallized under the Ministry of People Empowerment.
Good afternoon, Prime Minister. Jevan Butcher, DBS. Moving a bit away from the water harvesting conversation into the conflict going on currently in the Middle East in how it pertains to St. Lucians. How many locals, if any, are in the Middle East, and has the government had the need to bring any locals back home as of current?
How many locals in the Middle East would be a challenging question, unless they declare themselves. They're very challenging. People go to the Middle East all the time, and nobody knew. I mean, some people nobody knew that the war in the Middle East would have happened at this time, and no one knew that these other countries would have been affected. The Ministry of External Affairs, they've reached out to people who they can find to take them home. I know the government of Barbados and St. Lucia subscribed or promised to subscribe to any form of transportation. In that case, they were speaking about a charter flight for St. Lucians who will be identified to come back home. The government of St. Lucia promised to subscribe to that flight. But in terms of numbers, we're not clear, but the Ministry of External Affairs is working on bringing anybody that wants to. Basically, once they can come back. You heard about the West Indies cricket team. Hope I don't get blamed for that. The West Indies cricket team had some issues in coming back. So we will work with the airlines once we identify the people who said they want to return. But as the numbers, I am not clear as to the numbers.
Afternoon, Prime Minister. Lema Marriott from DBS. I have just one question. Some Caribbean countries have opted to directly hiring Cuban doctors and technicians. Is this something we are considering to do if we aren't already doing it?
Well, the position of Cuban doctors, again, for the government is clear. We do not have any agreement with the Cuban government on doctors. We have no agreement. We have no signed agreement for doctors with the Cuban government. Let me say it again. We have no signed agreement as we speak with the Cuban government for the provision of any doctors. We have no signed agreement. The doctors who are working in St. Lucia now are working as employees of the Ministry of Health, and they get paid like regular doctors. There is no agreement. As to what will happen in the future, it depends on the supply and demand. But we have no written agreement with the Cuban doctors, with the Cuban government, as it relates to doctors who are working here, or the medical personnel who are working here. That's the information I have from the Ministry of External Affairs, from the Ministry of Health, that there is no signed agreement. People who are working here are working like regular doctors, getting paid as regular salaries, as regular health personnel. That is my information from the Ministry of External Affairs and the Ministry of Health. That is my information.
Good afternoon, Prime Minister. Over the weekend, we saw the price of crude oil go to $105 a barrel. I know last time we spoke, you did mention that your ministry is making all the efforts to see how you could address this issue, including looking at what would happen if the government collected no tax on that. Do we have an update from you on this?
The price of fuel in St. Lucia is still $16. We are looking at the figures. You must realize when I configured my estimates, it was based on the price of fuel still at $16. The truth is, I have not changed the estimates, which I'm going to read next week on Tuesday. I haven't changed the estimates because of the situation, but it's a very worrisome situation. But the price seems to be fluctuating every day. It seems to be high and low, but we are monitoring it. But the finance ministry is working on a what-if situation. But I can tell you that we have to understand that's one other time that we have no control over what's happening abroad. So we have to make the necessary adjustments, but as we did in terms of the cost of living, we'll think about it, we'll sit down and we'll plan it like we did with the price of fuel now. You may recall that there was a continuous call to reduce the price of fuel. It was loud and clear, particularly in the time leading up to December the 1st. It was loud and clear. You must have heard it. We took the position at that time that it was not the opportune time. I will not tell you, we knew there was a war. We didn't know that. But you saw it wasn't the opportune time to reduce the price of gas at the gas station, because we wanted to create some fiscal space for other things to happen. This is why in the upcoming estimates, we're going to have a primary surplus. And I want to tell you that the performance of the economy for this year, the figures will tell you, when the year ended 2026, was one of the best ever. I hope you'll be very pleased today that it's that performance. I'm telling you, I'm giving you a preamble as to what it looks like in terms of the fiscal situation of the government. And this year will be much improved. It is beyond what we expected. It's beyond the projections for this year. So the economy is in very good hands. The figures show it. You measure economies by figures, unemployment, fiscal surplus, debt. Our overall deficit was less than we predicted. We believe that this year, ending 2027, we have to make adjustments for any possible shocks. But last year was one of the best years for the economy of St. Lucia.
Prime Minister, finally from me, as it relates to the West Coast Road project, I know Dr. Hilaire spoke a little bit about that, but I want to go a little bit more in depth on that. any cost overruns as it relates to the project as of this point, and how much is it costing the taxpayer of St. Lucia now that we have gone back to our Parliament seeking additional financing for this particular project? And is it your hope that this time around that this can be the final contribution towards this development?
Just to jump your memory back a little bit. That road was something that we inherited. We inherited that road. That road came. It came when we came into government. We had it there. We found it there. Right? It's funded by UKSIF and by the government of St. Lucia. Our original plan was to use that. In fact, UKSIF, if you recall, was an arrangement by Prime Minister Cameron of the UK for infrastructure development in St. Lucia, actually negotiated with Dr. Kenny Anthony was Prime Minister. This is what I always tell about the history. That money was earmarked by the Labour Party to be used for what we call a chemin royal, which was a highway from Grosley to Vieux-Fort. Wasn't the cost of it. Don't say I say that's what it cost. No. It was not the entire cost. The money would have been used, part of it used. A feasibility study had been done, and you may be pleased to know that we were in government, but for that feasibility study, the parliamentary rep for South East Cashews was invited. He was invited to share his views on that feasibility study. The government changed, and the government in Nigeria decided that they would put that money on the Millennium Highway and the West Coast Road. There were issues surrounding the procurement processes, which I don't want to go into now. But we did not stop it. You may recall that in 2022, there was a hue and cry about that road. Yeah. You remember that?
Yeah.
Okay. And then ask you whether you're old enough to remember that. There was a hue and cry on that road. Confusion. I personally had to go up there. And speaking to the contractor, all sorts of problems, all sorts of complaints. People were complaining. I personally had to intervene and use some not very choice words to ensure that that road continued. But we didn't stop it. That's what's important. We never stopped it. During the time COVID stepped in, that road was COVID was in 2020. So to be fair, when the road was negotiated, COVID was not there. To be fair, COVID was not involved. But 2019, 2020, COVID stepped in. That road, the whole negotiations for that road started when the United West Party went government. That's when they choose to use the state money. So then we found now that we needed $10 million more to complete that road. I will not tell you, because in this business, I have learned that a lot of your words can live to haunt you. I will not tell you the $10 million is a cost overrun, because I do not have the documentation, I don't have the engineering estimates for that. All I can tell you is it costs $10 million more. Regarding whether it's cost overrun or not, time will tell. But I hope that we will not be borrowing any more money to put on that road. But I'm very pleased that that road is at a stage where we can say it's going to be completed. Very happy at that.
Thank you, sir. And finally from me, with pension income now being exempted retroactively from 2025, will pensioners whose income was taxed be refunded without the hassle of having to file income tax returns and wait for indefinitely for their refunds?
No, they have to file. Everybody must file. The filing situations get easy. And I want to also tell the public of St. Lucia right now to change their tax codes. The only reason why we have so many tax refunds, people do not change their code. If you change the tax code, you pay less tax every month and you don't have the necessity of getting a tax refund. But everybody is going to put a tax return to get a tax refund.
Good afternoon, Mr. Prime Minister. Just one question from me. So last year, the government would have implemented the cost of living zero-rated items as well as the reduced VAT items list. So going forward into 2026, is there like an update based on the public's reaction to the item list, and as well as is there any plans or any adjustments to the list being made going forward?
Well, I must say that the public responded rather positively because some prices did go down. You haven't heard that. Some prices did go down. And the public were, but you know, the public of St. Lucia, they are very discerning people, you know. And they show that discernment at the right time and in the right places. They're very discerning, you understand? So nobody must believe that you must take the public's silence for consent. The public is very discerning, and they've shown that discernment. And what a better way to show that discernment than December the 1st? Because there was quite a bit of noise, you know. There was a lot of noise, accusations. And these accusations persist. Accusations, innuendo, accusations, memes, all kind of things, you know. But the public, it took a line, it took a pencil, and they expressed that level of discernment. And I want to thank them for that. In my situation, they gave me more votes than the last time. And I'm very grateful for that. Very grateful. And it's my responsibility to protect them. It's my responsibility to make sure they have water. It's my responsibility. That's my responsibility. And I'm not shying from it. It's my responsibility. So regardless of the innuendo, the critics, the social media postings, my job is to improve the quality of life of the people of St. Lucia. That's my job. And I'll continue to do it. So the question you asked about the cost of living, we removed the VAT on zero-rated, and we came from zero-rated to removal of VAT. We are constantly looking at the situation. Constantly looking at the situation. And if the time comes for us to take any measure that will improve the life of the people of St. Lucia, we will take it. We take it. So we monitor the situation to see how we can make life better for the people of St. Lucia. I want to say before you leave, these are very trying times. Very trying times. Trying times in that we have no control over the situation that's happening now. Some people may want to make you believe we have control of it, or they have control over it. They have no control over it. We have to adapt. We have to adjust. We have to make the necessary changes. And most of all, we must take control of the things we have control over. Our behavior, our attitude. That's what we have control over. Many things we have no control over. And I want to implore solutions to take control of what we have control over. Because the times are coming, will be challenging, they'll be testing, but you can rest assured that they have a government that will always put the people first. I thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I want to tell you again, please, ask the people to make the minor adjustments to harvest rainwater.
Yes,
Just
right.
one to it.
Yes, sir.
I want you to do that for me, please, would you?
Yes, Mr. Prime Minister.
That's a promise?
Yes, that's a promise.
Make
sure you watch the news today.
Okay, I want you to. I'm because when I saw the rain, I was in church yesterday, and I saw the rain, and I said to Mr. Victor, look at that rain, look at that rain, look at that rain, look at that rain, and I saw it on the ground, on the ground, on the ground. Have a good week.
Yes, sir. You as well.